I'm joined now by Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina. Congresswoman Mace, welcome to the show. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for having me.
Of course. So you described your first 100 hours in Congress very memorably as hell. Let me ask you about this morning. Does the temperature feel any different today?
Well, I mean, we have a new administration now, and I am hopeful. I want to put the last few weeks behind us and start focusing on our future. With Joe Biden being sworn in, we have a clean slate to start from. We're not going to agree on 80% of the things, but at the end of the day, our goals are the same. It's how can we work together to achieve some of that together. We have real problems right now with COVID-19 and small businesses being shut down, people out of work. We have a real problem with vaccinations getting out to states, and South Carolina, number one right now, we're dead last in the percentage of vaccinations we have per 100,000. And so I really am hopeful for being able to find ways that we can help the American people. And I want to be part of the solution going forward and how we do that. How do we do that together?
What we've seen from the president so far has been him using the power of the presidency through executive order. He sent a couple bills over to Congress, which we'll talk about in a second. But I wonder if you share the setting policy aside, right? Do you share the same concerns as some of your Republican colleagues about the use of the executive actions altogether?
I do. And we see Republican and Democrat presidents doing that. And that's usually their first stake in the ground to draw a line in the sand and say this is part of their agenda for the administration. This isn't anything new to anybody. Every president does this. It's historic in the way that they do it. My biggest concern right now is with the American people and ensuring that going forward, we really look out for trying to get our economy back together. Previous to COVID, we had the greatest economies in the world. People were employed. If you wanted a job, you had a job. And so I just want to make sure my concern is with getting people back to work safely. And those who can and want to get back to work, that they have the opportunity to do that. And there are some places like in South Carolina, our unemployment right now is hovering just over 4%. We've done a remarkable job, but right now we're dead last in vaccination doses. And so I'm working really hard to do what I can at the federal level to get us up to where we need to be with other states. And those are the things that are really concerning to people right now. The executive orders, they are important, but also getting people back to work, getting them safely away from COVID-19 and their exposure to it is equally important as well. And that's where my focus has been, really.
Hearing you talk about the pandemic, I'm reminded of some of the themes that we've heard, frankly, from President Biden and his team here, because that is one of his priorities. He's, in fact, sent that massive legislative plan now over to Congress, that $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan. That's one of the two big bills he sent, including immigration. Have you had a chance? I think you were reviewing, I believe, some of that legislation. Do you think that $1.9 trillion plan is a good start?
Well, it's expensive, quite frankly. What we saw, what I want to make sure happens with this package and has happened with others, that in the past we've sent checks to dead people. We sent checks to people who are not citizens of the United States. We sent checks to people who are making $75,000 a year and their income and lifestyle was not affected by COVID-19. And so because of our deficit, being $4 trillion in the last fiscal year, it's at $28 trillion now. Our debt is right now, but we've got to be really focused on how are we going to afford to pay for all of this going forward. And that's where my focus seems to be. It should be very targeted relief to small businesses and to those individuals who've lost wages, lost work, lost salary because of COVID-19, those who are most affected. That's where our focus should really be. And I'm not sure that the package quite does that.
And I believe that some of the things you mentioned, obviously not widespread, if anything, perhaps an isolated instance. But I want to ask you about a vote that you're going to be taking today, this vote on a waiver to let retired General Lloyd Austin serve as Secretary of Defense. Just to remind folks, because he has not been out of the military for long enough, there has to be congressional approval. We saw this, 4 years ago with Jim Mattis. How are you going to vote on that waiver, Congresswoman?
I'm still looking at that. I'm traveling today, and I have not made that decision yet. I'm listening to both sides of the argument. One of the things that I think is very important for elected officials is that we are consistent. We did this for Mattis 4 years ago. So what is the argument not to do it now? He would be the first African-American SecDef that we've had. I think that is remarkable. If we've done it for others in the past, then why the opposition now? And so I'm looking at it. I'm going to be reviewing precedent and what we've done in the past, and I'll make that decision in just a few hours.
Let me play for you something that one of your fellow South Carolina lawmakers said about the future of the Republican Party and where it goes now in this first day, really, of the post-Trump era. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham.
Donald Trump will be the strongest voice in the Republican Party for years to come. If you're wanting to erase Donald Trump from the party, you're going to get erased.
You have called yourself a new voice for the Republican Party, so I wonder whether you agree or disagree with Senator Graham. In other words, what should the role of now former President Trump be in the party moving forward?
Yeah, well, I hadn't heard those remarks until just now, and I love Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. I'm not going to speak against any one of my colleagues personally in my own party, but I will say that I do believe the Republican Party does need a new voice. There are some within our party who are diehard Donald Trump supporters, and it doesn't matter what he says or does. They're going to continue to be that way, and that is something that we have to also acknowledge. But if we don't also acknowledge our own issues within our party and hold ourselves accountable for the things that have happened and the things that have been said, then we can't ask the left to hold themselves accountable. And so I really want to be a consistent voice in that regard. It's something that we as a party are going to have to navigate in the future. But at the same time, we just can't be hypocritical about it. If we're asking the left to end violence and end rhetoric on their side, we've got to be willing to do it on our side. And I do think these are things that we're going to have to focus on in the future if we want to keep our party together and if we want to continue to win elections in the future. And I'm going to be a strong voice. I have been attacked repeatedly for being such a strong voice, but after the events of the last couple of weeks, I think it's more important than ever that we have a diversity of voices within our own party and that we respect each other for it.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.